just in the way that we interact with one another. We're going to have more like telepathy with each other, and we're going to have telepathy with our kids. We're going to actually remember what it's like to be a kid, and we're going to start placing more value on childhood. In a utopian society, we're going to know that in order to even nurture a child at all, it's not necessarily about teaching them, like putting layers over them, but nurturing what they already have by supporting them. The main thing is not to ever criticize them, because what that does is teaches them criticism and teaches them that they're not good enough. Stuff like that. There's going to be changes in the way we deal with our neighbors. Our neighbors are not just going to be some strangers. We're going to be filled with joy when we see our neighbors. We're going to have excitement. And this is pretty obvious things to any kid. Any kid is going to say, I remember being a kid and saying gosh, it's going to be so much fun when I become an adult. I'm going to do adulting way better than they are. And it's going to be like a utopia. And I didn't understand how it couldn't be. When kids see each other, they're so happy. Like when dogs greet each other in the street, they some of them even cry or lay down, they lick each other, and it's an amazing thing. But, in a utopian society, we're not going to look at somebody strange for being something different than we've ever seen before. We're going to be like, oh, wow, you're conscious. How do you, do your life in these ways? How interesting. And, oh, wow, you're love too. And I'm love, and we're all love. And it's just going to be great. And nobody's going to be like, oh, what are you? Anytime somebody's like that, they're projecting because they don't feel worthy. So in a utopian society, everybody will feel worthy. So nobody will criticize anybody.
Well, it's interesting, isn't it? Because I believe that kids are born for a utopian society. You'll see that young kids will accept and love one another straight away.
That's why I say we'll give more respect to childhood.
And the way kids are brought up, especially, because it seems as if it's trained out of them in a sense to fit to something other than a utopian society. I was in the store, what was it? It was last Sunday, and I was just sitting there in the cafe in the store, and there was a Chinese family sitting on the table, next to me.
You were over there at Sainsbury's?
I think it was Tesco. Anyway, I was there, and as they were sitting there eating, there was kids on the table, with the mother and dad and whatnot. And this African family walked past them, and the mother and father of the African family didn't even look at the Asian family at all. But the kid who was walking behind them stopped, looked at the little boy, stood right in front of him, and just waved in his face. He didn't know him at all. Complete stranger, yet that love was there. Both of them must have been about 3 or 4 years old, and it was just beautiful to observe.
Yeah, I was. Oh, go ahead.
Sorry, it seems as if these things are programmed out of us. Because how many people do you see doing that nowadays who are quote unquote adulting?
Unless they're drunk. You see drunk people acting like that. I love you, man.
Yeah. If I was to walk up to, someone else and just stand in and wave at them, a lot of people would be like, he's weird. He needs help. Something wrong.
Yeah, see, in a utopian society, people are going to be doing quote unquote weird things all the time.
Yeah, exactly. And I think that's one of the main reasons why children are our greatest teachers, because they're showing us our unconditioned selves. They're showing us our inner child, And I think to live in a utopian society, we have to be in touch with that aspect of ourselves and express it.
This is one thing I saw the other day that I was going to mention, that I posted about the other day. I was at the juice bar, and
Mhm.
it's like part of a Jewish grocery store. Anyways, there was some woman and her kid walking out, and the kid wanted to walk along this like railing. It's like a bumper, I guess, for the carts so they don't hit the wall. And she was only like, could be like more than three, couldn't be more than three. And the mother was like, okay. And they spent like, I don't know, 5 minutes while she was balancing, walking down the corridor. And I was like, standing at the end of it, kind of cheering her on, like, whoa, like that's such great balance. And it's like, she kept falling, but the mom had her hands. And I was just thinking,
Yeah.
toward the end, the mom was, getting a little frustrated. And then she quickly did this like sweep motion while, getting her excited about something else outside to get her to go out there. But I was thinking, like, in a utopian society, people are going to spend so much time with their kids that, like, if you have a kid, you're not going to
Mhm.
be thinking about some other things that would be more joyful. In our society, people don't realize that their kids were in actuality the most joyful thing until they've lost it, or until they're on their deathbed, or, I wasted all this time. But
Mhm.
in a utopian society, everybody's going to be so involved with their kids. Their kids aren't going to be, I had to hit her because she stuck something in the socket, and how is she going to know better if I don't hit her? She's going to know better because
I
she's
know. I
spending
know.
24/7 with you, and she's so empathetic towards your emotions that when you go, ooh, no, no, she's going to be like, mommy said that, so that means that, because I love mommy, I respect mommy, I listen to what mommy says, not I don't respect mommy because she and hits me for no reason because adults are stupid, like.
It
Anyways.
reminds me of, remember we were talking about our friend Renee, and you said that she said that people just aren't present with their kids.
They're not in the now, so they get
Yeah.
irritated when their kid, who's always in the now, because that's all the kid's guilty of, is being so in the now that they don't do any kind of careful planning. So they irritate you, who's so opposite from being in. Yeah, that was one of the most perfect posts I had read all year, I think. Was
It is a really big lesson,
Yeah,
you
that
know,
was beautiful.
and that innocence, that childlike nature, is deep within all of us. It's hidden dormant within us. It becomes eclipsed by the influence of our society.
But we want to know how to be joyful all the time. Well, if, those of us that remember our childhood where we were joyful, know that, I don't know, quality of life. You look at a child and you're like, who are you? What do you have? What have you attained? Well, the child's enlightened and is in bliss 24/7. What do you have? You try to attain that bliss by all these things that you have, but you have nothing if you don't have bliss. So the child should, we should be like, almost worshiping the child. Like, it's God.
Well, it's a big lesson, isn't it? It shows that we don't really need to attain anything in that sense because it is already within us, and the child simply has access to that while we shut ourselves off from it. And I think the whole goal of yoga or meditation or any other permission slip or tool that people like to use in their spiritual practices is to just get back to that center, where that innocence,
uniting with, being child within, but, this time with discernment, with more creative abilities to ground that into physical reality. So if we were children that naturally developed without so much criticism and that those beliefs setting in from culture of worthlessness and whatnot, then we would feel more entitled and we would just latch on to our joys and manifest accordingly. But since we're a part of that culture, we lose our unification with source and we have to then do things to reunite. But really, essentially, all that is feeling worthy again, is feeling so entitled again that,
Mm-hmm.
you
And I
don't.
think the actual main, aspect of rediscovering your worthiness is to understand that you are an intricate and important aspect of the whole. You are one with it all, and you really do realize that you can't really feel unworthy unless you are forgetting it again.
definitely. We're going to go on a commercial break.
We're going to have... Yeah, we're going to...
Go ahead.
Okay, we'll be back in a moment.
Hi, guys. Welcome back to Esoteric Wisdom with Cheryl and Craig. Say hi, Craig.
Hi, everyone. Hi. So, yeah, we were talking about what it would be like to live in a utopian society, and pretty much just highlighting the ways our society is right now to give us a bit of a contrast as to what we're going to be talking about now.
And I guess these could also be called symptoms of ascension. You know, the ascension that everybody's all talking about all the time.
Yeah. I mean, that really what it is. You know, we are ascending. Are we ascending a dimension or a density? Is it density?
We're ascending dimensionally and okay, well, we can explain this. Okay, like the density is like the material denseness of it.
Mm-hmm.
Like it's an inert object. The dimensions are something else. So density wise, we're 3D, we're third density. So when we raise our conscious awareness to a higher density level, we're no longer going to be in the realm of 3D. We're no longer going to be limited to our third dimensional bodies. We will still have a third dimensional body when and where we need it, or we know we'll be, at first we'll be quasi-physical. So we'll be raising up dimensionally. An object in a higher dimension than 3D, we can't really fathom from the 3D, kind of like from 2D, you have a piece of paper and an object written. If you're drawing a 3-dimensional object on a 2D piece of paper, you can't see the other side. You can only see one side of it, a snapshot, if you will, like of that, what that looks like according to 2D, but you're still looking at it in 2D. So if you're looking at something from 4D, from the 3D, you can only kind of look like see what it looks like if it's, etched onto the 3D. You can walk around it in a 3D sense and see, but you can only see it according to 3 dimensions. So as that object turns and moves and pushes through our dimension, it's going to look completely different as it turns. You know what I mean? Kind of like if a human if you're trying to explain a human to something that's 2D, the human can stick its finger through the sheet of paper. The only thing that the 2D things would see would be the circle where the finger stuck through. You know what I mean? It would be like if you chop the finger in half, it would be kind of like an oval or something. They would see that rather than the entire human being. They would only see that part of the finger. So that can be the difference between something that's 4D and 3D. That can be how vast the difference is. So when we become 4D, we're going to be able to move through time space differently, backwards, forwards in time. None of those laws are going to be holding us back any longer. Unless, like I said, we want to go through a walk through the park and see things in a 3-dimensional sense, then we can.
Yeah. And I think the word ascension also, because ultimately, a person has to ascend on an individual level. And when we talk on an individual basis, this goes with, everybody experiencing ascension in a completely different way because we're all unique. So like one of the commenters in the text box did say here, she said that ascension means something different to everybody. On that level, yes, it does. But I think collectively, when we do collectively go up into a higher density, then it's going to be pretty much the same on a collective level. The repercussions of it will be. But how we get there on an individual basis, of course, it's going to be different.
Well, I mean, if you look at it like there's multiple realities, there's parallel realities, there's all sorts of different possibilities of, blah, blah, blah. I mean, you look at like shamans in the jungle, some of them are vibrating the highest higher than we are or whatever, and they're chucking spears. They're maybe they didn't bathe, or you know what I mean. So ascension in that sense might look different. They might even murder or whatever, but they're still somehow vibrating higher. So that's kind of unique to think about, like what ascension looks like. But in a
Yeah.
utopian society, what really marks that being a utopian society is that they will support one another. When you raise dimensionally, like we were just talking about, higher dimensionally from 3D to 4D, you no longer will need to eat. That's one of the common things. So we'll no longer kill. And there's a lot of beings that are like on board with this ascension process that are ascending together. We're a big like culture, So
Yeah.
even the animals, they won't eat either. They will stop eating when they raise dimensionally as well. This is backed by what Bashar says. So, those Bashar fans that might want to
We have a
question.
question in relation to this, if you'd like to answer it. And somebody has asked, where do you think that you are ascending to?
What do you mean? Where?
I don't know, where do you think or believe you are ascending to when you speak about ascension?
Where are we going to? Like which place?
I guess, I don't know.
Well, see, I think that to understand the ascension and to understand how each place that we're at is like a fleeting parallel reality. We're shifting through billions of parallel realities a second. So every second, it's a completely different reality, completely different you. So where we're going wherever the mind can imagine. And the rules, the belief system structures, the way we think things should be, those are going to change, and people are going to have a different idea. It's going to be easier to support one another. It's not going to be common in our culture to criticize so easily, stuff like that.
Yeah. Okay. And I think that is obviously on an individual basis, and I think on a collective basis, I think we're ascending back to where we, fell from in vibration, because the times of Atlantis, Atlantis at one point was a utopian society, until they fell.
Yeah.
On a collective basis.
Well, definitely. And I mean, we're not going back. See, we have a lot of help from not only our ancestors from that time, but like I said, other extraterrestrial races and entities on other levels that are really watching us and making sure that this doesn't happen again. Us ourselves are more in tune with our higher minds. We really aren't that devolved as we think. We have a lot of latent abilities that just with a couple of different, when we become activated, we turn on the DNA that we have already. We have these abilities already locked into our DNA. As we turn those on, it's going to be like remembering. We're going to mesh really well into this new type of thinking. We're going to look back and to a year ago, and we're going to be like, wow, I can't even believe we've come this far. I couldn't even possibly fathom stuff like, full disclosure or whatever. You know what I mean? And it's going to become the norm. We're going to have new beliefs. And yeah, even talking about it right now is opening the door to that. Just saying, like, yeah, it's definitely going to happen. People aren't going to doubt these type of pagan beliefs and ideas. They're going to know it.
Well, I think one interesting thing to point out too is that even though we all interact with one another, ultimately we're all in our own reality, and that's where parallel realities come into play, like you mentioned before. And I think even the different types of ascension on an individual level that everyone is going to be experiencing, it's different. It's completely different for everybody. It goes to show that your beliefs really do determine what you experience, because even when people who have so-called near-death experiences, who have a religious background, you'll see a Christian will ascend into a dimension where they'll see Jesus or whatever, and you'll see a Hindu who will ascend to like somewhere called Krishna Loka, and they'll interact with Krishna and whatnot. So I think it sort of works in the same way, the same mechanism, you know. Whatever beliefs are there in your imagination is what you will experience.
And another thing that people don't realize is that beliefs are unconscious. They're stored in the sub and unconscious levels of consciousness. Only thing that's conscious is what you're dealing with right here and now. So if beliefs are unconscious and you don't really know about them, you can actually believe something differently unconsciously than you do consciously. So somebody can say, I don't really believe in demons, and then all of a sudden they see one a week later, and it's like, well, I do now. That means that unconsciously or subconsciously all along, they did in fact believe in demons. They just are saying, I mean, we say and we don't, but...
Exactly, some people can say, oh, I don't believe in demons, but it can be, you know, so immersed in their unconscious mind that they may not even realize that they believe, you know, because previous experiences really do condition us to believe in things that we become unconscious of. So I think that's one of the main reasons why it is important to bring out all these limiting negative beliefs into conscious awareness.
Yeah, you know, like, we're going to become, in a utopian society, we're going to become way more receptive. We're going to become allowing. We're going to become, we're going to be able to let go of what we like think we know and allow for new things to be known. And that's another thing with being supportive of somebody else. When somebody speaks, it's like when somebody wants to do something, when somebody has an aspiration, when you want what's best for somebody else, and you're just living in your joy, whatever is the best thing that makes you feel the best right now, and you're in a state of allowance, you support others, you're aware of everything that's going on, and you know when the best time is to speak. You're in flow. A state of flow is a state of receptivity to your higher mind. So when you're in creative muse, when you're just saying everything just right, or your head is in the game and you're making all the scores, and this is a state of receptivity, and it's a state of flow, and it is joy. It is your highest joy, is not to be caught up in your mind stream. So
yeah. I think receptivity goes hand in hand with emptiness, you know. And to be empty, we really have to, in a sense, let go of what we believe we do know and really embrace the unknown. Because if we're born each and every moment, like, over and over again, you know, St. Paul is quoted by saying, I die daily, you know. That's because he embraced the unknown every day. And again, it goes back to that childlike innocence that in the child that is deep within our core, you know, that really does thrive in the unknown, thrives in not knowing, and really does trust and support.
When we were kids, we, you know, lived in this state of receptivity. We just lived in the now, and we were always in joy. We didn't think about the future too far ahead, and we didn't necessarily think about the past unless we were using it to feel more joy. And that's why children are so blissful. And I know, like, a lot of adults say, I really want to get back to feeling blissful all the time. Feel like a child. Isn't that the quality of life? Isn't that how you'd want to live your life? So, yeah. In a utopian society, we'll spend lots and lots of time with our kids, and economically and culturally, we will have a place in society. Everybody will be their own gear turning the clock, and even if somebody takes a little bit longer to find their path, that's okay. They'll be supported, because we know that different people have different speeds, and that means that when they do bring something to the table, it'll just be, you know, something else unique, something needed. So, you know, when people think about politics or whatever, and they think about, you know what I mean, Bernie Sanders is taken from and giving to and this isn't fair. Everybody should work for what they have, and we shouldn't give anything away and seal up the borders. And this is not a utopian society. Bernie Sanders has the idea of a utopian society, is to allow for this world to function as a clock, a machine where all the gears turn. You don't have one part of the machine thriving, one country in the machine thriving, and the rest. That's not going to work out. It really isn't. I know that people might like to think that, but it just isn't. And having, not so much control, at least over the borders, and allowing people to take their time to be supported and finding what they need to do and learning what they need to love, and just more support all around the table. Children being born and having constant attention and teaching them, because they need that very early on. Lots of attention, all your attention, pretty much. So in a utopian society, that will be so. And people won't be bored with their kids. That will be absolutely the most amazing thing that there could be. People's priorities are going to be very much in line. People are going to have so much empathy with their child. They're going to hear out of the child's mouth their own childhood and their own ideas and their own innocence and their own purity, their own sensitivity, and what that must have felt like to go through. In a utopian society, all the problems and issues that we think we have are going to become pretty much obsolete, because we'll have a different focus.
We'll touch on it more when we come back. We're going to take a short break now.
Hey.
Excellent.
Yay.
Awesome.
I know I felt a big tinge when I mentioned something political. I feel the wave.
It's okay.
It's true. The final war, the Antichrist and Jesus. This is it, man. It really is. We got the Antichrist on one side, the second coming on the other. Then... So do you want to just bring it in with talking about Krishna?
Well, I mean, if you want to bring it in, you can, but I don't know how we're going to tie it together.
Oh.
Let's go on to the, let's mention Sasani now, and how because we started off with Atlantis back then. Now we can mention Sasani a little, and we can talk about the positive synchronicity and the negative synchronicity that I've got highlighted on the lesson plan there. And and then we can bring in the neuroplasticity.
Okay. You've already. I stopped paying attention to you. I'm sorry, but yes, we'll do that. I'm sorry. I'm so sorry.
How many minutes?
2.5.
I'm gonna pee right there.
Okay. Right there. Ooh, I kind of got a pee too, but sorry. Ooh, I'm not even using my headphones.
It sounds good.
Yay.
right. About 30 seconds.
What's the green bit on the text box? What does green mean?
That means it's somebody that's just signed in and they haven't changed their name yet, or they
Okay.
just haven't been updated. The membership in the chat room really doesn't mean shit. I don't know why it's there. I don't know.
He said, Craig,
So they can be unique.
I don't even know who it is.
Cool.
Yay! Fan. All right.
All right. Here we go. Ready? 3, 2, 1, go ahead.
Welcome back, everybody, to Esoteric Wisdom with Cheryl Keaton and Craig Woods. You there, Craig?
Hello,
All
everybody.
right. If you guys have any questions, you can go to the chat box on UnitedPaganRadio.net.
If you want to ask us any questions, feel free to.
Whew.
So yeah, we're gonna keep focusing on what it would be like to live in a utopian society, and now we're gonna speak about, one of the teachers who has influenced me and Cheryl quite a lot over the past few years, Bashar. The way I said that was so cheesy, but the type of world that this being lives on,
Oh, you want to talk about Sasani? Yeah. Sasani, this is what Bashar says. This is like an extraterrestrial race. They live not only in another dimension and at a higher density, but in another time zone. But since they're not limited in that sense, they can reach us telepathically, psychically. We can channel it with our higher mind. We can channel it like Darylonka does, some of us. Anyways, in their society, where they live on crystal ships that float above the planet, so they don't even actually step physical foot on their planet anymore. They have ancient ruins there from their ancient people, but they don't do anything to disturb the nature in a physical sense that lives on their planet. They live in crystal ships that float above their planet, and they live in sort of simulations. But like I said, they exist higher dimensionally. So they exist in a world of what's higher dimensionally than us. It is like the world of feelings and beliefs and templates and, parallel realities.
It's the realm of lucid dreaming in a sense, because
Dream time. It's what the Abbos from Australia were talking about when they say dream time.
Yeah.
Or what shamanism is talking about when they say underworld. Or the netherworld, I don't know.
Yeah. Anyway, a civilization like this, who together collectively, on this level, they function through synchronicity. And what synchronicity is are those, type of coincidences that happen, and you don't really know, you don't know how they happen. And there are two types of synchronicity. There's positive synchronicity, that is the occurrence of events that are perfect reflections of your preferences and desires. And there is also negative synchronicity, which is the occurrence of events that are perfect reflections of your fears and doubts. And, the positive synchronicity are those coincidences that, just reinforce your bliss. So, say, for example, you just decided randomly one day that you'd like to start playing the guitar, and you started listening to, someone like John Lennon playing the guitar, and
Had to be a
you go
Beatle.
out.
He's from where the Beatles are from, so.
Yeah, that's why I said that. But and within a couple of days, you go out and you're seeing John Lennon signs everywhere, or you come to realize that one of your friends also does the same thing, and these little coincidences would help reinforce that joy, would give you a push. Yes, keep doing it. The universe is telling you to keep going.
So what you're pretty much all synchronicity is manifesting what you're manifesting. You're manifesting these little things, these little signs will fall down from the universe and be like, you're going in the right direction. Or you can manifest negatively. You can manifest negative synchronicity because you are holding negative beliefs, and what you're feeding into the machine is something negative. So the machine, who has no preference, who is neutral, is going to feed you what you give it, and it's going to make stuff happen in your life.
Yeah, exactly. And I think, again, with negative synchronicity, which again is the occurrence of events that are perfect reflections of your fears and doubts, you can work with these negative synchronicities because they are reflecting your fears and doubts. They're reflecting what you are negatively, reaping, because you sow what you reap. Or do you reap what you sow? I can't remember.
So yeah, you're saying in a different type of society, a utopian society, people will manifest positive synchronicity and they'll live their lives with this understanding of synchronicity.
Exactly.
So yeah, like we're talking about a civilization where even their animals are friendly, and their children, by the time your child's 3, they're allowed to just go wherever they want. They just leave and they walk around, and you don't worry if they don't come home because you know that they're with another member of the family. They exist in like a hive mind type sense. Everything is utterly peaceful.
Yeah.
They know each other. I mean, they know each other's fears and doubts and worries, and the source of their fears and doubts and worries. Nobody criticizes. Nobody questions. They're extremely intelligent. Their physical bodies to us would probably seem pretty unattractive. Like they're shriveled up. They don't have much hair. I don't even think they have eyes, or they don't open their eyes anymore. Their skin is like really soft. Maybe like kind of.
Can I just interrupt when you spoke about eyes then? It reminded me of the movie The Matrix, where physical bodies were asleep on a ship, but they were plugged into...
Okay, yeah, it's something like that. It's something like that, but when they leave their body behind, like in a dimensional, you know what I mean? Their bodies are vibrating high enough to where they don't need to eat to stay alive. So they live a very long time on top of that. So it's as if their body's plugged in somewhere, but their body's plugged into their own consciousness.
I think I remember Bashar saying that they are actually asleep on their own ships while they travel the higher realms. I think I remember them saying that.
Their spaceships can aid to astral travel and other type spiritual things, just like the ancient Egyptians built the pyramids. And they were machines. They were energy power stations. And you're like, well, what are they powering? They're blenders and toasters? Like, no. They were powering their consciousness so that they could speak to extraterrestrial civilizations, so that they could attain this bliss, so that they could become initiates of the sacred schools, of the sacred alchemy. So an initiate back then was somebody who actually attained something. Now you say, oh, become initiated so you can learn, but that was actually a state of like attainment back then. Anyways, these machines, these pyramids were built to, when you got into the sarcophagus, that's like, I don't know, 2/3 of the way up under the blah, blah, blah. This thing's like a big, huge battery with the halls and things, and the aquifer underneath was generating from the earth, and then out the tip was generating was connecting to the cosmos, creating a big huge battery. And when a human being got in the sarcophagus, it was never meant to bury somebody in there. That was meant for meditation. When a human being got in the sarcophagus, they could attain the higher states. They could speak to extraterrestrial civilizations, speak of their own higher mind, understand their past lives, understand all this great knowledge and wisdom. So yeah, that's kind of what a spaceship is. A spaceship is to amplify the own powers of your higher mind, project yourself even more, to have even more gifts, talents.
And it reminded me of Atlantis, because you yourself have had a few visions and experiences of being on Atlantis. And I remember you telling me once that you saw floating pyramids in the sky.
Well, that was a vision. The memories of, or the flashes and the memories of Atlantis, the mind traveling or whatever, I was having memories, and the thing that was floating was like this big power station. But the power stations that I've seen a bunch of, most of them had like 4 pillars and crystals on top and crystals like inlaid underneath, and somehow they were generating again, what are they generating, and like what kind of stuff did they do during the time of Atlantis with these power stations? They did weather manipulation. Well, they go ahead.
Sorry, I just wanted to. Someone asked us a question, you see, and it's about Atlantis, so you can sort of kill 2 birds with one stone here. They asked, do you think Atlantis was a real physical place, or is it just a metaphor for a spiritual plane?
See, well, they get Atlantis confused with the other. What is that place called, Craig? Please. That place. Yeah. No. The place that's in.
Shambhala.
Yeah, Shambhala or Shangri-La, or they got a couple other names for it. This place out in Tibet that's floating around. And what that actually is what Shambhala is because in that place in Tibet, that's one of the earth chakras, or used to be one of the earth chakras, which is moved to like Sedona or Shasta or something. But in that vortex of energy, people could enter altered states. When they entered altered states, they would go to this land that was higher dimensionally and higher density wise. So it's not that it doesn't exist. It doesn't exist on this plane, but we actually can be quasi-physical, so we can reach it there. Atlantis is a place that actually existed in our past, but still in another dimension, so you can go there. You can even, time doesn't exist, so you can have an experience of one of your lives there today. Or you can cross-connect there. So it can seem also like a land like Shambhala.
Exactly, and everything, like you just said, exists at the same time. And those realities are still there right now. People talk about the Akashic Records a lot, and they speak of the Akashic Records of being this book that people can tap into and tune into. But my understanding of the Akashic Records is that everything exists here and now. And if everything exists here and now, that means that, you can attune yourself to any event that's happening right now. Because everything's already been created in that sense. And the Akashic Records aren't some book. They're creation itself. It's a metaphor for the universe itself.
It's like all it is.
It's just, yeah.
Yeah, a lot of people. Go ahead. What is the word Akasha mean?
I was just going to say, the word Akasha is just another word for ether, I think.
I forget exactly what it means, but yeah, no, I agree. Akasha isn't a place. All places are like places, I guess, but places aren't really things. It's like you're shifting through billions of parallel realities per second, and yeah, all that is real. You don't necessarily go and flip back through the pages of everything that's already happened without creating another reality, creating more to add on to the Akasha. So everything that's ever happened is Akasha, and you don't necessarily go back. You cross-connect to other lives. You can cross-connect to things that you've experienced from your oversoul, causing downloads. And when you get those downloads, you then unravel them in your current life. So in that sense, you don't necessarily even have past or future lives. You have your life, and this is always who you are. You're always going to be that. But you can make endless cross-connections to so many other things, and there's so many other ways in which we're all connected, and so many other ways in which people are your soulmate. Yeah.
And even the whole reincarnation thing, where some people say, I honestly do feel as if I lived in Egypt, and they connect to that. Obviously.
Well, they might have some permissions that they're using that is cross-connecting them to that life very, very strongly, in a sense making it real to them. But that wasn't them,
Yeah. Okay, we're going to have to go on a short break. We'll be right back. Thank you.
Hey, welcome back to Esoteric Wisdom with Craig and Cheryl. Hi, everybody.
Hey, everybody.
So, somebody wanted to know how I know so much about the Sasani body.
Yeah, Christina wanted to know.
Hi, Christina. Thanks for watching. Listening. Yeah, so I guess, like, when you, like, the knowledge and, like, how I put this scope together is from so many different sources that you, like, kind of like how you put the story together with your senses. So not only have I spoke in, like, fifth kind contact to ETs that are very, 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 very much higher dimensionally. So being introduced to that energy, if even just the first time you're introduced to the energy, you realize, okay, this is completely different than how I thought it was going to be. And there's all these clues and all these signs, and you're like, in order to make sense of how that must be, you eventually come to the conclusion that it's like this. Oh yeah, how do I know exactly what their bodies feel like? Kind of. Yeah, well, you can have, like, even Craig, you said that you've seen, like, an entity in your third eye, and you've seen that its skin was ethereal and, like, the way it felt was much different. It's, like, soft.
Yeah.
When you see something with your eyes, you can kind of see what it would feel like too. So when you see something with your third eye, and you can, even when you're seeing stuff with your third eye, sometimes you can get really close to it. Like, you can see in detail of her arm, you know what I mean? Like, you could really get in there. In their hearts, you can see what they felt. You can feel it all.
Yeah, and I have actually had a few encounters with, like, 2 or 3 different extraterrestrial races, and they were ethereal, they were non-physical, but at the same time, there is a deep knowing. It's like they're communicating with you it's definitely on a higher mind level.
Whether you see them or not, we communicate with them all the time, and we just don't know because we're not putting form with it. And the more you become in tune to your senses and what senses you're using and ground that into consciousness, so you can be like, oh, that's what that is. Then you'll see I am talking to these entities. And as we wake up to talking to these entities, a lot of your spirit guides might actually be incarnate somewhere. You know what I mean? Like, once you figure out who they are, what they are, the clues fall into place pretty quickly. They'll introduce you slowly, but after you get into it, you'll just kind of wake up one day and be like, I actually know all this. I know exactly what it's like. When you ground that into, us, especially looking at our culture and how we deal with things, it's like, whoa, what a difference.
I want to stay on topic a little bit here because, we've sort of spun off into another dimension. We're talking about a utopian society on Earth, and we're talking about ETs. But, I mean, Krishna is somebody who's very influential to me, you as well, And I think he was way ahead of his time, in a sense. He stood out among all the others he was around. And, he really did speak out in the Bhagavad Gita and show us how to live in a utopian way, in a sense. So why don't you tell everybody about the Bhagavad Gita show?
On the spot. Okay. Let me just see what y'all. All yoga is based off the book, the Bhagavad Gita. It's 2 chapters of this epic called Mahabharata. One of the ancient Vedas, whatever, that tells a story. The Mahabharata tells a story of the warring kingdoms of India leading up to the Kurukshetra war. This was the time that Krishna, an avatar, chose to incarnate on Earth. A god in the flesh came to ensure the outcome of the Kurukshetra war. When the strongest fighter in the world, Arjuna, who fought on the side of good, threw down his bow and refused to fight because he could not bear to kill his beloved great uncle, the commander of the opposing army. The Bhagavad Gita is about Krishna convincing Arjuna to kill Bhishma and other teachers and family whom he cared for. While the war was waiting on Krishna to blow the conch, Krishna had to convince Arjuna before he would pick up his bow again and kill these people. So, Krishna explained while Arjuna asked his questions until everything about life and humanity was explained in this. This is the great sermon that took place on the day of the Kurukshetra battlefield called the Bhagavad Gita.
Yeah, and there's a lot of speculation among historians as to whether the Mahabharata it was actually real or whether it was just fictional or whatever. But
Mahabharata.
you know, just as a side note, you know, the legendary city known as Dwarka, which was the city that Krishna built for him and his people of that time, was actually found underwater. I think it was Graham Hancock in the 1970s. He used to go underwater deep diving, and I think they
I
found.
don't know if he's the one that found it, but yeah. Yeah, he pretty much had to come to ensure the outcome of the war because there was like a kind of like a definite divide, like a split between the two kingdoms, where on one side was the Pandavas, which are the 5 brothers, Arjun and his brothers. And on the other side, it was the evil prince who wanted to, I mean, he had ideas like, let's take the queen into the, in front of the whole kingdom and strip her naked. And, you know what I mean? He had some really bad ideas against women. Mainly, Krishna was all about equality of the sexes. So he came during that time to ensure the outcome of that war. And Krishna was an avatar and, obviously awakened his DNA by the help of ETs and could remember all this. But this is from a higher age when people could remember a little bit easier and they could speak to the gods and they could pull like miraculous, miracles. And yeah, I believe it, but I believe it. I believe in the things that they said that it happened.
No, I do believe that it did happen because something, there's a lot of talk about whether a scripture is allegory or whether it's real. But why can't it ever be both? Because you can pretty much make an allegory out of anything that you assign labels to, So there are some quotes that we've taken out of the Bhagavad Gita here that fit into what.
That's the as above, so below, huh? The as above, so below. How there's an allegory in everything. There's actual meaning in everything, and there's hold on, I wanted to say never mind, just go ahead.
No, like for example, if you look at a light bulb, for example, the light bulb could represent our physical body, and when you switch on the light, it's connected to the rest of the house, the collective, and when you switch it on,
I mean more like fractals. Like each fractal has unlimited fractals coming off that, and each of those fractals have fractals coming off that, and fractals coming off that, and no matter where you're at, it's the same design, it's the same thing coming out of it, but yeah. As above, so below, and you were saying that there's allegory within the story. Even though the story is true, there's still unlimited meaning that can sprout from that.
Yeah, because everything is ultimately neutral, and however way you want to define anything, determines what effect you get out of it. So 100 people could read the Bhagavad Gita, and each of those 100 people would get completely different effects and would see it in different ways, and that's the beauty of, scriptures such as this one. But anyway, Krishna speaks about, what it would be like to live in a utopian society, and we've pulled out a few of his quotes out of the Gita. And the first one reads, "Worldly people are karmically bound by activities that differ from those performed as yajnas. O son of Kunti Arjuna, labor thou, not attached in the spirit of yajna, offering your actions as oblations."
I'm going to reread that because I was still zoned out trying to think of what I was trying to say. Sorry. Worldly people are karmically bound by activities that differ from those performed as yagyas. Worldly people are karmically bound by activities that differ from those performed as yagyas.
Mhm.
What does it mean worldly people are karmically bound, first of all?
Well,
What does it mean to be karmically bound? I mean, what does that mean?
it means to be, in a sense, trapped by the consequences of your actions. You know, because if you're
So
constantly
if you're
going
karmically
out
bound to
there-
something, that means that you haven't learned the lesson that this thing that keeps showing up in your reality keeps showing up to teach you, and you're not learning from it. So worldly people are karmically bound by activities that differ from those performed as yagyas. What's an activity that's performed as a yagya?
A yagya is a symbol. Yagya is, you know, there's two different types of yagyas really. There's the actual external yagya where you'll see like all the rishis of ancient India sitting around the fire and they'll be throwing like rice and everything into it and singing mantras. That's a yagya. But
so a ritual, a fire ritual, fire rite.
A fire ritual, yeah. So, but the true yagya is within you. It's actually when you're in that gamma state.
So it's desireless act. It's when you're performing something for the sake of performing it because you're living in your joy, you're performing your joy. You're not having expectations to the outcome of your desire. You're just living in the moment. Worldly people are karmically bound by activities that differ from those performed as yagyas. Labor thou, non-attached, in the spirit of yagya, offering your actions as oblation. So offering your actions for the simple fact that you're doing something, yay. So like when you take a kid to the store, they're like, we're going to the store, it's gonna be fun. They're just like, store. Wow, store. And we're like, you know, I hope I remembered all of my coupons so that I can, you know, and then, I mean, you can continue on and on forever in an adult's mind, but a kid's got it, you know? They're like, store. And go into the store. And synchronicity abounds.
And I think the yagya is a state of being. You know, it is being in that gamma state, that flow of allowance, you know. And they liken it unto a fire because being in that state literally burns away the past within you. It causes something which is scientifically known as neuroplasticity. And neuroplasticity, which is also called brain plasticity, is the process in which your brain's normal synapses and pathways are altered as an effect of environmental, behavioral, and neural changes. When it comes to neuroplasticity, the brain is a lot like film. It's a lot more malleable than it normally is.
Yeah. So we're talking about a utopian society. In a utopian society, our brain's neural net will not be so hardwired. It'll be more plastic. So we'll have the ability to make more neural connections, more changes. We'll be able to learn, so we'll be more receptive. A brain that's got more neural connectivity, that's more plastic, that's got more neural plasticity or whatever, is a brain. I mean, you can literally just do that by saying, like, chill, dude. Just tell yourself, chill. Right now. You don't need those coupons. You don't need your kid to stop singing in the back. Just tune it out. You don't need to be worried about this traffic. Just sing a song with your kids. You know what I mean? Really, just chill. All of a sudden, your neural pathways will open up like you would not believe. You see the synchronicity. You see the reason you're stuck in traffic. You see the things that you needed to see. You create and manifest a beautiful world for yourself.
Exactly. And you're reborn, you know, each and every day, really. Because, you know, there's a Buddha quote where he says we have to become like a spider, you know, and every day we shed our skin, shed the past, and, you know, be born and brand new in each and every moment. And I think that is the whole goal of yoga in of itself. To be born again each and every moment. But yeah, we're going to have to go on a short break now, so we'll be right back.
Hey, welcome back to Esoteric Wisdom, everybody, with Cheryl and Craig.
Hi, everybody.
So, we were talking about Krishna. We were talking about all that involves Krishna. Go ahead.
We were talking about the Bhagavad Gita and pulling out some of his quotes.
I will go ahead and read the next one. But that man succeeds supremely, who disciplines the senses by the mind, unattached, keeps his organs of activity steadfast on the path of God, uniting action.
So,
God uniting really is just our bliss, So he's talking about performing actions that are in alignment with your joy without any expectations at all. Because to have expectations means that you're attached to the actions. So it's just about following your joy, no expectations, going with the flow from moment to moment, and just keep performing actions that reinforce that bliss within you.
First of all, you didn't put the stanza in. I know, being like that guy that needs the stanzas, but it helps me to visualize where it's at in the Gita. So, like, is this chapter 2?
Chapter 3, Karma Yoga.
Okay. Yeah, just chapter, it doesn't have to be exact. But yeah, so this chapter itself is about Karma Yoga, which is about following your joy without expectation. It's mainly about thought action without any expectation for the fruits or the rewards of action. So what that pretty much is saying is the same as Bashar. It's saying follow your joy to the best of your ability until you can take it no further. And then choose the next thing that's your biggest joy and follow that until you can take it no further. But just as important is to not have any expectations of the outcome of your desire. So keep doing that without expectations. So that's what Krishna is constantly laying it on with the expectation thing, just like Bashar. So when he says, but that man succeeds supremely, who disciplines the senses by the mind. So disciplining the senses by the mind, what does that mean? That means getting your senses, corralling your senses in a way that your mind field is not completely cluttered with impressions from them, from your senses. Not only your senses as far as sight, touch, sound, and all that, but you have other senses too, like the way your mind perceives and all these.
Yeah, I think, disciplining the senses by the mind also can be using the senses to their full capacity. Because when you completely immersed in an action, when, we were speaking about Renee earlier with her child saying, you're not in the now. They're not people who don't enjoy the time with your kids aren't in the now. And what she's talking about is using the senses fully to be there, to sort of anchor herself within that moment, so she can become immersed in the action, in the performance of the action so much that she has no time to have any expectations because she's become one with what she's doing. The doing and the doing become one.
Okay, so I guess what he's saying, who disciplines the senses by the mind, he's saying that you have the proper...
That is what Krishna is getting at there.
That you have the proper, you can break this down even to think about meditation, how when you meditate, you close your eyes, you sit completely still, you witness everything that's around you, you actually perceive more your senses, the sensations that you have, the thoughts that you have. Hey, sorry about that. Technical difficulties. We'll get that sorted.
So yeah, we were continuing on the Bhagavad Gita and the quotes that we were going through.
Yes, the man succeeds supremely who disciplines the senses by the mind. And I was thinking, what does that mean, disciplines the senses by the mind? You can think about in meditation, you sit still and you observe everything around you. You close your eyes, you sit completely still. And essentially what you're doing is not tuning out your senses, but like tuning your senses in a way. You're observing the sounds, the smells, the sensations that you might feel, and the thoughts that are in your head. You're actually honing in on that more.
Yeah.
Right? So you know that's kind of how they come up with all the basis of yoga within these 2 chapters. Is like the stuff that Krishna's saying is so true on so many different levels. So yeah, who disciplines the senses by the mind. So who has a honed in focus. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Who knows what they're perceiving. Who is not confused. They don't have all this clutter in their mind field. So unattached. When he says unattached, again, he's laying on that you shouldn't have expectations to the outcome of your desires. That to me is what attachment, non-attachment, blah, blah, blah means. It's actually not telling you don't, have preferences, don't have desires. It's telling you not to have any, don't be focused on the result of that. Don't be focused on something that's not here and now. Don't be focused on something that's not here yet. Keeping his organs of activity steadfast on the path of God-uniting action. So keeping his organs of activity, in other words, his focus, steadfast. So focused on the path of God-uniting actions. So that's following your joy, really. When they say God-uniting, they're saying something that's uniting you with Source, something that's encouraging your own positive synchronicity, positive manifesting.
To reinforce that bliss and that notion that you are, a worthy aspect of creation. And the more God-uniting actions that you do perform, the more of your worth you're going to discover.
But the individual who, this next quote is from chapter 3 as well, huh?
I'm not sure, to be honest. You know what? I was going to ask you, shall I put the stanzas?
But the individual who truly loves the soul and is fully satisfied with the soul and finds utter contentment in the soul alone, for him no duty exists. Such a person has no purpose of gain in this world by performing actions, nor does he lose anything by their non-performance. He is not dependent on anyone for anything. This is where he was talking about the perfect man.
Yes.
Before he manifested his divine form.
And I think, the individual who truly loves the soul and is satisfied with the soul and finds utter contentment in the soul alone, what he's talking about there is to be whole within yourself. When you actually find that balance between you, the physical self, and your own higher mind, you do become whole again. There is no
How great is it, Krishna, a god that teaches you all this philosophy? What other god has like this depth? It's
exactly.
It's just great.
That's why I said it. He was way ahead of his time.
Well, in a sense, you could say that, but wasn't he coming out of the golden age? So he was like in between times.
Yeah, I think this scripture is going to last forever, and nobody actually knows how old it is.
It's going to last forever because of how populated India is.
Well, true, but they do have a sneaky way of preserving their culture,
Yes, breed fast, breed money, breed much. Right now, why aren't you breeding? You're married and you don't have a child yet? Like, that's their life. But I mean, what's better than family, man? They've got it. Anyways.
This text, passed on from generation to generation
by word of mouth.
By word of mouth, yeah.
That's why they needed to hurry up and get it actually written down, because those mouths were getting more foul by the decoercion of culture, as Krishna predicted. Anyways, but the individual who truly loves the soul and is fully satisfied with the soul and finds utter contentment in the soul alone, for him no duty exists. So for him it's not really a job, because he's enjoying every step along the way, every leaf that falls, every laugh from a child. Such a person has no purpose of gain in this world by performing actions, nor does he lose anything by their non-performance. So he's in a state of acceptance. He's not expecting anything to fulfill him. He doesn't have expectations for the outcome of his desires. He is not dependent on anyone for anything.
Because he's whole within himself already. Nothing that the external world can ever really offer him can make him more complete and whole than he already is. So there's no fear of loss whatsoever. And when there's no fear of loss, you can truly enjoy the world.
So the main things that they're talking about here is not having expectation of the outcome of your desire, and what is this uniting thing I want to get into, Shakti, right?
Okay.
So, like, when Krishna constantly speaks about uniting, what they're talking about is uniting with Source, and when you unite with Source, you're awakening your Kundalini, and that's pretty much the basis of yoga. So you have yoga as, the philosophy that we're hearing right now, and you have yoga as a practice, and where they take this from what Krishna is saying and turn it into a practice. Is that exactly?
Yeah, it's all to reach that state of being ultimately, isn't it? And I think Shakti, the Kundalini, is part of it.
But yeah, so Shakti. What is Shakti? I mean, I think a lot of people just have like that general question, right? Like, what is Shakti? What is Shaktipat? What is Kundalini? How do I have it awaken already inside me? Is mine already awakened? I think I felt something. Am I awakened because I felt something one time? A lot of people have misconceptions. So yeah, I think like talking a little bit about it would be a good idea. For instance, if you have Kundalini, you've felt something in your spine, or you felt something on your root, and you've got a little bit of, shaky electricity type senses in your spine. That is Kundalini. Does that mean that you're awakened? No, that just means that you're having Kundalini. And if you do not have a regular practice, pretty much if you don't have a teacher like Guru Ma, Mahashakti Anandini Ma is our guru. So if you don't have one of those, you don't have some help, then most likely it's going to go back down. And that's exactly what I experienced with my own Kundalini when it awoken. But, there was misconceptions because I thought, well, I still can transmit Shaktipat because I had that like unique ability. So surely that means that my Kundalini is fine, and that's not what that meant. So my Kundalini activated and awoken and united, but because I didn't have a regular sadhana, I didn't have a practice, and I didn't understand all these deep things, it closed back down. It's a lot more intensive than you think. Some people's can awaken very fast, but most people's awaken in several stages. Some people's awaken and then close down completely. And you have 3 streams in your spine of Kundalini. And though you can feel some, on and off, when you're awakening it, fully uniting with Source, you do one side, then the other, and then the middle, which is like your main Kundalini. But Kundalini is in everything. It's in all of nature. Everything has energy. When we look at the quantum scale of everything, we see that everything is nothing but energy. So Kundalini is the energy that's inside of everything.
Ultimately, yeah.
So when somebody has a strong Hara and they have strong Shakti, they're just stronger. In a sense, you could even say that they're more strongly attuned to nature.
Mm-hmm.
And because that's all of nature. Oh, okay.
We'll come back to this after the break. We've just got to take a short break. We'll be right
All
back.
right. Back, everybody, to Esoteric Wisdom, Cheryl and Craig. Craig, you there? All right.
Yeah, so we were talking about Shakti and obviously the Kundalini energy. You know, and there are a lot of misconceptions about this. A lot of people believe that, you know, when they awaken the Kundalini, that they're spiritually awakened beings. But this is just actually the beginning of a huge process that one has to undertake. Because the layers of, you know, conditioning that lay deep within people's emotional bodies and mental bodies have to come out. They have to be let go of. We have to peel away them layers.
Well, let's talk about the chakras. Like, what the chakras actually represent. You know what I mean? Kind of. Have we already done that? No, I don't think so.
Not really. I mean, yeah, you
Well,
can go into that if you want.
Well, so your root chakra is connected to the physical reality, has to do more of your like fight or flight mechanism, survival. And as you go up, you have your reproductive organs, so that's kind of like your passions, your lust, getting more up into your solar plexus chakra, which has to do with your willpower.
Your passion.
Your passion, right? And then as you come up and you reach the heart, you sort of, you know, transcend that idea a little bit, and you get into what you're more like connected to other people, your ego, your, you know, your divinity, your divine ego, and what that really entails and what that means. And then you go up to expression and really like, you know, being that spiritual person and grounding that with the way that you manifest in your reality. That's the throat chakra. And then up to the third eye chakra, that's sort of more insight, more actual direct manifestation of higher mind into physical reality, right? And then the crown chakra, that's that last door of complete unification with source. So as you come up to these blockages and you reach, you have a blockage in some chakras. Some people have a blockage in one and not the other. Some people have a blockage in their heart. Some people are blocked in their root, blocked in their third eye. And what that really means is that they're dealing with certain challenges that represent those things, and it might manifest as something in the body, but it all has to do with belief templates.
So Cheryl, may I interject? Yes. So give the audience an example of how a negative belief that would block somebody's root, for example.
Well, when you're feeling that, so I guess fight or flight mechanism, that's something that's more centered in the root. And really, if you think there, that fight or flight mechanism gets triggered whether you're dealing with something that's threatening your physical well-being, but sometimes it gets triggered when you're dealing with something that's threatening your emotional well-being. And as we know, nobody can really threaten your emotional well-being other than yourself. So if something that somebody is doing is causing you to emotionally shut down and feel like, no, you know, we're not going to talk about that, or I'm about to get hostile, actually. If you're feeling that, you're feeling the fight or flight mechanism, and that's going to block your root.
Exactly, and I think a lot of the time, I mean, the fight or flight mechanism is natural for one. You know, I mean, sometimes we can really be in danger. Like, for example, you're in a burning building and you're trying to kick the door down, and all of a sudden the fight or flight kicks in, and you've got this incredible strength, and you save your own life. That's fine. But
for the cause of like the adrenaline that it comes there. But if you're doing it in a suppressing or denial type of way, then you have anger. So you create. Go ahead.
Sorry, it's just that like beliefs that have to do with a lack of trust in your life, a lack of trust in your process, beliefs that make you feel uneasy.
And you never blocked in one shot. First of all, I just want to say this. So you never like blocked in one shot. Have you ever felt like the butterflies because you fall in love with somebody and you can't stop thinking about them or something? You feel it in your chest, power sacral. You feel it in your heart, your throat. Joking. You feel it all at once. You feel it all at once. So I'm just saying, you know what I mean? People need to, like, they have like these ideas that, you know, it's all in this one little direct like thing and it all works like this physiologically, but this is all something mental. All your blockages in your chakras is something mental. It's something that's happening to you on a mental level, and it's something that you're believing to be true. All of this reality is an illusion other than the 5 laws. So if something's bothering you, it has to do with your beliefs. So all chakra integrating, all yoga is getting back unit. All yoga is, what yoga means is to yoke, is to unite with yourself. And all uniting with yourself means is to have positive beliefs where you feel supported and you feel as though you're unified with source. You believe that you're unified with source, and you're completely 100% entitled to feel bliss, to feel joy with nobody getting in your way.
Amen. And I think that, you know, I completely forgot what I was going to say.
Sorry.
It's alright. But yeah, a lot of what yoga is simply peeling away them layers, and yoga is a great tool. The yagya, you know, burns away. Being in the presence really does bring up.
Well, Yogananda is the one that inspired you to talk about yagyas, and I think particularly what he was talking about was the Kundalini.
Of course.
I mean, I read that chapter. He's
synonymous with that.
No, I read the chapter. That's actually what he was talking about. He was literally saying the fire, the yagya is in your spine, in your coccygeal. He says it all complicated, in your coccygeal center.
Yeah.
It's in your root chakra because you bring that energy to your. Go ahead.
Sorry, it brings the Kundalini going up the spine. You know, it bursts through the blockages that are there, even though they're not really blocked, but you know, the beliefs that are in the spine, that are in the different centers.
Yeah, he says some amazing things on that, actually, which is really why I was wanting you to refer back to that page, because it's just amazing.
Yeah, I mean, if anyone's interested in it, you can check out God Talks with Arjuna by Paramahansa Yogananda.
But yeah, what was the page? It's chapter 2 or chapter 3.
I'm not sure.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, it's in it.
It's where he talks the first time he mentions Nishkan Karma. It's on the same page. Nishkan Karma is at the bottom of that page.
Chapter 3 is Karma Yoga, so.
Yeah, it's when he's talking about okay. But anyways, yeah, when people do the fire rite in India, you always see them. They have a little thing of ghee, butter burning, and they throw things into the fire. They say, offer this into the fire, offer that into the fire. And what Yogananda was saying is, you guys, you're doing some ritual that's just a metaphor for your Kundalini awakening. You have to sit in lotus posture. You have to burn by focusing your energy. You kind of focus it where it doesn't want to go. When you do yoga, you focus it down. It doesn't actually go that way. So Kriya Yoga is permission slip by using your intention to focus your energy, your Kundalini, in a way that's going to make it slip into the Ida, Pingalat, Shishunda, Kundalini energy channels and awaken you. And this is why Kundalini Yoga is yoga. You know what I mean? You have this Hatha Yoga that people do and they hold poses. They're like, look at me do this pose, everybody. I'm doing yoga. This is not yoga. I mean, it is, I guess, if you can say that maybe you do a little. You do that routine before you sit to do yoga. You stretch so that you're comfortable to sit and do yoga.
Well, for me personally, yoga is the state. Yoga is the goal of yoga, you see.
Yeah, yoga is not only the practice, but yoga is the goal. It says that in the first of the Patanjali Sutras.
Yoga is the state of being itself, and that's, what I like to define yoga as. The practice is meditation, really.
Yeah, the practice is sitting completely still. So when somebody is doing yoga and they're using that term correctly, they would be sitting perfectly still and maybe doing a couple of other things to get that energy flowing, not one pose to the next when they're doing some sort of aerobics. That's something you do to quickly at the beginning to stretch your body because you're about to sit and you want your energy to flow through your channels very good. So you stretch to get that energy flowing through your channels very good. Then you sit and do the yoga. But in Hatha Yoga, they often just tell them lay in corpse pose and they walk them through it. They don't incorporate any sort of daily sadhana that they can really do to awaken these energy channels in that way. That's Kundalini Yoga or Kriya Yoga. That's what we're talking about, is a Kriya Yoga taught by our guru, Mahashakti Anandini Ma.
And the ultimate goal of yoga too, in a sense, is to really believe in yourself, to believe that you are worthy, to believe that you are one with everything.
Yeah, your chakras are blocked mainly by negative beliefs, and one of the most common, or the most common negative belief in society is that we believe that we are not worthy, which is not true.
We have so many mechanisms within us to prevent us from feeling worthy. You know, so it's not even about attaining anything.
Well, those mechanisms were learned by a culture, by a society that, like I said, is not a utopian ideal. The way we talk to our children. Our children are well trained to feel worthless by the time we turn into adults, just simply by the way we don't have patience or time. We don't have time because of the monetary system, because of how not being in the utopian society affects us economically, which then affects us socially, which affects our domestic life.
I think it's a lack of awareness as well, you know, because people don't really pay attention to how they're even speaking to the children sometimes.
The child is fully activated. The child is fully awakened. The child has the Kundalini united with Source.
Yeah.
And what that means is that the child is even more receptive to anything that you say or do. When you're in an awakened state, when your chakras are turned on, you're in an altered state, you're in a subconscious state, you're in a state of hypnosis. So what you say to your child when they're very little, you're like hypnotizing them. You are hardwiring that into their brain. You need to be so careful. If you don't do that to them, they will never close their Kundalini. Their Kundalini will remain on. They will not close their Kundalini down. Won't have to awaken their Kundalini. They'll be enlightened the whole time. Us having to reawaken and enlighten is because of a sick culture. And yeah, pretty much that's what we're working to defeat. The school systems, everything needs to change.
And that's what Jiddu Krishnamurti once said. He said, "It is no measure of..." What did he say?
It is no measure of health to be accepted by a sick culture. Or it is no measure of good health to be well accepted by a sick culture.
Profoundly sick culture.
Oh, yeah.
No, profoundly sick society, he said. Well, I think we are changing. I really do believe, individually and collectively. People are waking up all over the world, and I do have faith, you know, I really do. I think the world, even though on the surface it may look like it's insane still, I think, you know, slowly it's heading in the right direction. Things happen exactly when you need to. And yeah, collectively we're just in a process, just like we all